Well, let's now move on to something that was very, very historic that happened this past weekend that Barry was really very excited about. I was quite excited about it as well. First, there was a failed attempt because of weather, but finally, on Saturday, NASA and SpaceX, a private venture, got two of NASA's sort of highly qualified astronauts into space on a private vehicle.
Yeah, really historic moments. And like you say, I was watching all of it with bated breath. It really was a really inspiring kind of moment for space exploration. And in the midst of what's been happening, it really has been a moment of hope
Yeah.
and a moment of kind of to celebrate what humanity can accomplish. The reason it's such a big deal, of course, we've sent lots of people to space by now. We've got lots of astronauts who've been to the space station and whatnot. Why it's such a big moment is that it's the very first time that a private company has sent humans into space, right? Traditionally, space has kind of been dominated and dictated by government organizations and by giant kind of international cooperation. SpaceX is a private company formed by Elon Musk himself, of course, and they managed to get two astronauts from NASA to the space station with no hitches. It really is a big step forward for space commercialization, and hopefully it's the first of many as we start to kind of unlock more of the value there. SpaceX, of course, have made this possible by inventing reusable rockets, which have brought the cost way, way down.
Right.
They've really done a lot of amazing new technology to try and bring the cost of space exploration down, to hopefully get to a stage where we can start to have lots of commerce going on and people going up and down from space, and perhaps a lunar base, and hopefully one day to Mars. And this is kind of the first step, the first kind of test that a private company like SpaceX can work with a public-private partnership with NASA and get two astronauts up to the space station, get the rocket to land back on Earth to be reused, and to do all of that while live streaming the whole thing. It really was amazing to watch.
Absolutely fascinating. And for me, the whole thing is how quick it was all over. I don't know what it is, but I always thought, when you're in science and you're studying these kinds of things and you think in light years, I really thought it would take a lot longer to catch up to the International Space Station. But within sort of a day and a half, 2 days, it was all over. They were there, landed safely. It really, really is incredible. And like you said, the fact that we've got that quality imagery that was being live streamed the whole time really just does show you the kind of advancements that we've made over the last couple of years. The one thing that does spring to mind as somebody who hasn't really been following this very, very closely over the last couple of years is I believe Richard Branson was going to do something similar. And I'm not entirely sure whether that's still going to happen with Virgin. I think it was Virgin Galactic or something like that. Barry, surely you would know a bit more on this.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a couple of guys who are trying to build these things. So Richard Branson is trying to do it with Virgin Galactic, and they're trying to open up space as a tourist destination.
Right.
So their vision is that one day civilians, so who are not astronauts, will be able to go through a little bit of training, and they'll be able to go up into space as a tourist activity. Jeff Bezos, who has a company called Blue Origin, which is also trying to do the same sort of thing. And so I think because this kind of is proving the concept, I think we'll see a bunch of other new private space companies start to do things in this area. And that's what Elon Musk is so amazing at doing. In the same way that the Tesla's kind of ushered in this new era of electric cars and showed that it was possible to build a brand new electric car company, his SpaceX is doing exactly the same thing. It's proving the concept that private space companies are possible. And so while SpaceX is still far ahead from their competitors for the moment, I anticipate the Bransons of the world and the Bezoses of the world to really see this as a real opportunity to try and catch up and even bring that price even further down. The more we can bring the price of this exploration down, the more we can do in space and the more kind of opportunity there is for exploration going forward. And so it really was amazing to see. I mean, personally, I love this stuff. I found it incredibly inspiring. Yeah. There's something incredible about watching a skyscraper lift off from the ground, go into orbit, right? Release the skyscraper and land the skyscraper back on the ground. Yeah. Then to watch the space station go around the Earth a couple times and in 19 hours dock autonomously without any human intervention to the International Space Station. It's a feat of engineering and a feat of human cooperation that is hard to fathom, especially for those outside of science and outside of physics. But it is a monumental step for us as we try and become a species that is multiplanetary, as we try and make sure we can have an insurance policy and get some people onto the moon, get some people onto Mars, and really kind of push that boundary and see what's out there in the universe. So, Chad, I came out of it energized and inspired, and it really was an amazing thing to watch.
Well, yeah, I think let's touch on that a little bit more. The emotion of it. Obviously, like you said, this week was very somber, for many different reasons. And to have this kind of victory at the time where it came, I think we could definitely draw some comparisons to when the first human went on to the moon. And I remember watching a kind of very poignant episode, I would say, of The Crown, which we've spoken about before, where Prince Philip just gets obsessed with the event and the occasion, and like you said, just the awe, this idea that humans are so much more than we give ourselves credit for at the moment. And so, just take us through a little bit more of your emotional journey, really. I certainly would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think for me, the first piece is the engineering marvel, right? So I know nothing about physics, I know nothing about aeronautical engineering, but having watched like the 3 hours before launch and watched like the amount of effort that goes into every single little thing on that space launch, the hundreds of people who are involved. So we only talk about the 2 astronauts, but there are hundreds of people who are involved in every single aspect. So looking at various pieces of the puzzle, making sure that everything is running exactly as it is. The precision of everything. Like the idea that you can land a skyscraper on a drone ship in the middle of the ocean when it's coming down at who knows what speed, right? It's a skyscraper, and you land it on its legs is unbelievable. It's when you watch it, you can't believe it, because the amount of precision to know that at the exact point with the wind and the sea moving and the atmosphere and everything to land it is incredible. So the precision, the attention to detail, the engineering skill that it takes to get that into orbit is mind-blowing to me. And it makes you wonder about your own life. It's like it makes you feel like, what am I doing with my life? If these guys are sending rockets into space, right? It gives you that moment of complete wonder as to what is possible. Then the second piece for me, Chad, was when you see those images of the space station looking down on the Earth, and you see the images of the Earth from space, it really reminds you of how insignificant we actually are. It's like a cosmic insignificance. It really should humble us when we realize that we are just on a spinning rock in the middle of an infinite universe, in the middle of darkness, in the middle of infinite vacuum of space. And there's this little rock, and on that rock we live. And we kind of see ourselves as super important. But when you get to that kind of level and you get that perspective, you realize that we're not as important as we think we are, and we are super lucky, and we should be super grateful to find ourselves on this planet which can support life. We find ourselves in the spot where, when you look down on the Earth, all of humanity is the same, and that's why I thought it was so poetic that happened during all this race stuff, is because when you're looking down from the space station, it doesn't matter what color you are, because you're just a little ant on this rock, right? And the more we can see images like that and be reminded of our cosmic insignificance, it can free us from taking ourselves so seriously. It can free us from some of the tribalism that we see in the world today, and make us realize that as humans, we are one thing. We are one thing. We are all together in this. We are the same. We are the same thing. And for some reason, it takes those moments to look at the Earth from a distance and realize that. Because if you don't have that perspective, if you aren't able to see those images or see that video, you can live in your own little bubble in wherever you live, in Johannesburg, in London, wherever you are right now. You can live in that bubble and not realize how big everything is around you. When you see those images and you see things like their Mars plans and what they want to do and whatnot, it's hard not to feel that, hold on a minute, like the world and the universe is so much bigger than just me.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating insight. And I just loved your explanation there. I'd really have nothing to add. I just love that element of a wonder. And like you said, just kind of taking a moment to actually appreciate this. I know a lot of people just went on with their day-to-day lives. I watched the first sort of 10 minutes and it was insane, fascinating. But very, very luckily, when I got home, I actually managed to spot it in the sky in London. My neighbors were screaming at us, quickly look up. Fascinating just to see it and the kind of speed at which it was moving. Just really great to see that moment in history. Such an important one. Across the pond.